This is the Josh Lineup Project. Thank you so much for lending me your time and your attention. I truly believe they're the two most valuable assets in the world, so not for a single moment do I take it for granted that I have both of yours here right now. The goal of this podcast is to encourage you to slow down, take more risks, go after what you love, and appreciate the one percenters. The one percenters, as I define them, are the small, unexpected moments within your day that make you smile. So if you were to leave this podcast right here, right now, I hope you've already got one tangible takeaway, just to appreciate the little littles. This podcast is sponsored by my book, A Note to the Runners. There aren't many copies left. 42.2 poems dedicated to the runner, talking about comparison, winning, losing, like, or just going for a run purely because you want to go for coffee afterwards with your friends. I've written about it all, so it is the perfect gift. Maybe it's a segue into poetry for you, or if you happen to love both of those worlds like me, it's it's a great idea. Next up is my mentorship program. Would love to work with you one on one. If you're building a brand, want to develop your tone of voice, want to learn how to pitch, or just position yourself out in the world on the internet, would love to be in your corner. And finally, well, obviously, Notes Running is a sponsor that's making my life, um, funding my life, or getting there. But otherwise, if you like this podcast, you can buy me a coffee or today's guest, who you can see if you're listening or watching. And I order a long black. What's your coffee order?
Long black.
Long black. So if you'd like to support me or Rosie with a coffee, you can. And before we get into it, I'd like to acknowledge the land of the Wurundjeri Willam people, where I live, where I create from, where I run, where I find inspiration from. And I'd like to extend my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, past and present, and pay homage to the storytellers that have been doing and telling stories a lot longer than I have. So here we are. Welcome back. This is episode 0156. 3 years of the Josh Lineup Project has come a long way, or come a little way and a long way in that time, but we'll get to that. First things first, I'm going to start with the poem, and then I will introduce our incredible guest with her poem, and we will go from there. I've probably read this one before, but because of the notes drop this week, I thought I'd read it again. Don't wish it to be over. Stop wishing for the minutes to pass quicker. Stop wishing to get to the finish line already. Stop wishing for the pain to disappear. Stop hoping that something will distract you. Stop wishing for someone to come along. The finish line will come, as will the distractions. None of this will slow down. Don't wish for the finish line. One day, you'll wish you were still out there. Alrighty. Thanks. Take it away.
That's a good little segue. So this one has been a poem that I've come back to a lot since 2016. I'm sure we'll get into it. But it's from L.R. Knost. And it's called Life is Amazing, and then it's awful. And then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living heartbreakingly, soul healing, amazing, awful, and an ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful. Yeah, it's a
Who's that by?
Knost.
Incredible. And why did you choose that one?
So this one, it's probably like one of the first poems that I read that really kind of got me into writing, and like kind of the feeling of putting things down on paper and feeling seen. So I actually first heard it when I was at a funeral in 2016. And I had just, so I used to be an elite athlete, Olympic rower, but I'd actually just missed out on the Olympic Games. And it was kind of one of those moments where you feel like the life is crashing in on you, where like, I hadn't reached the Olympic Games, and I thought, the world would end, and then I went to a funeral, and then you realize that
The
there's
world
kind
hasn't
of
ended.
the world hasn't ended and someone's life ends, and this was someone who had just battled cancer, and that was kind of a poem that she'd gone through that kind of helped her through in those last days. And it just kind of like shocked me back into reality. And I think it was just like an amazing level set of, you know, as an athlete, what was I actually doing it for, but what was I living my life for, and what was the way that I wanted to um, kind of move through the world moving forward. And I think in high performance sport, you're kind of always chasing the extremes of all. And I'd never actually sat in the ordinary before. And I think sometimes in sport, in the plateau or the ordinary and the mundane, you kind of try to run away from it. But I think that's as I've moved forward, that was like what 10 years ago now.
Mm,
But there's incredible growth that comes from that. And how do you kind of sit in that and enjoy the ordinary and all those other things that come from it. So it's yeah, I think I when you asked me what poem, I was like straight away, that's
straight
the
up.
one, that's the one that I was
Yeah.
like,
And I said, don't tell me.
it's a secret.
Keep it a secret.
Yeah, so yeah, happy to send it through after, but it's been one that's I think especially as I finished sport as well, of like what do you actually want to do with your life, and kind of always chasing the big sparkly thing is not necessarily the thing that gives you um I guess that real grounding or sense of meaning in the world. It's kind of those in between moments that I really kind of focus on now.
Completely.
Yeah.
I am firstly very grateful that you're here today on the podcast. And there's a whole bunch of things that I want to just jump into off of that. Firstly, I met Rosie through my girlfriend, who you met at yoga. And I think we can get into that at some stage, or maybe touch on that. And then Rosie has started coming out to speed notes on Tuesday mornings, which has been epic. So I've got to s- run with Rosie, have coffee with Rosie, and then she was also in the notes running campaign in April. Who is Rosie Popa today on this couch right now?
Such a question. Who is Rosie Popa? I think Rosie's like an aspiring storyteller and someone that's not afraid to kind of talk about the uncomfortable moments. I think I'm aspiring to be someone that's, part of something bigger than myself. And that means being a good friend and being a good daughter and being a good sister and being a good colleague. But I think also someone that really shows up for herself so she can show up for other people. So yeah, it's definitely feels like a really wonderful change in the guard of my life where I've probably done a lot of what I think I should be doing for a long time. And I've tried to like draw a line in the sand of like what actually makes me pay attention and feel sustainable. Um, but overall it's like, what are the things that make you feel really alive, and
Mhm.
and how do you keep to um yeah, exploring that with a curiosity. I think that's the intangibles, and then on the kind of more tangible thing, I think you need to honor the big moments as well. So I'm an Olympic champion. I'm an Olympic record holder. I have an OAM for my services in sport. Um,
What
and
sport was this in?
oh yeah, that's a crucial detail. Yeah, in rowing, in the sport of rowing. Yeah, and I'm also part of a bit of a legacy. So my parents were also Olympic medalists as well in rowing, and they're Olympic. Um, yeah, they are also rowing coaches as well. So rowing's a big part of my life, and it's really changed in the last 5 years. But I'm really coming back to kind of who I am as an Olympian and where I want to be in that world as well.
And at what point, I guess I could probably say it was a big point in a big part of your life from the inception of Rosie. But at what point in your life did you realize like rowing was a big deal or a big
Yeah.
focus?
Yeah, so it has been something that I was just always around it my whole life, and I used to be a really keen basketball player, so I used to wanna go to the Olympics for basketball and do kind of the whole college thing, and then I had a really bad injury in 2006, and that kind of really derailed everything, and I still kind of have residual legacy injuries from that. Um, but I was yeah, mum kind of offered and saying, rowing is just something that you're obviously a part of, but do you wanna try it yourself? So that was probably 2006 or 2007. And then so I started in high school, and then it kind of elevated from there. I won't go into the club system, and then I started rowing for the state, and then I went to America and did my undergraduate degree there. Was there for 4 years, and when I came back, and then it was rowed for the US while I was over there as well, because I'm a dual citizen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Fun fact.
yes, fun fact. Yeah, and then came back in 2014 and then started a kind of a journey of trying to make the Australian team, and yeah, it finished up in 2021. So I would say it's like something that, being out of the rowing bubble now, like I just didn't know anything else and it kind of felt inevitable, but I don't think I w- I don't look at it as something that I was ever forced to do, and because my parents are, they've been so entrenched part of like rowing and sport is just something of who you are. It's not who
Mm.
you are. And this is something that's really, really hard and requires so much time and so much dedication. And you can't really have balance when you're in it, but you have to know that it will end. So you have to know who you are outside of that. So I kind of always had a bit of an ace up my sleeve compared to, I think, a lot of my teammates where I did know it was like this really beautiful thing that was going to end. And when you're in it, it feels like the world will end. But like I kind of, when I'd come out of it, knew that there were other things going on. So I felt very grateful to have their support of always developing other parts of me as well.
Day to day, would you like when you were in the thick of it, how often were you thinking about the goal at hand, whether that was making the
Mm.
Olympics, going for a medal, versus thinking about time outside of
Mm.
rowing?
It's really interesting because I think as I got better at it, I got better at kind of time boxing, focusing on it. So before, I guess, pre-poem,
Yeah.
going to the Rio Olympic Games was something that, like, I couldn't not think about. It was just something that
So Rio was 2016.
20 yeah, and I was almost, like, cutting corners to try to make it there, and I was so fixed on that being, like, the tangible outcome that I wasn't really focusing on the here and now, and I think I was not developing myself, like, emotionally or physically and trying to just, like, do the really, like, sparkly things instead of the basics really well, the one
The
percenters, if you will.
1%.
Was not focused on the one percenters, but I was obsessed of the outcome, which is, I think, ironically, probably not the right way to go about it. And then I was on the Australian team in 2015, but then I got injured leading into 2016, probably because I wasn't doing the one percenters right. And I was pushing through when I shouldn't have. And then when I did come back, I really set my mind to going, okay, well, Tokyo, which was 2020, which ended up being
Mhm.
2021, when that um, had that as a goal, but I would be really intentional of why I was there and also like carved out. It almost felt like forced of like going out to dinner with friends or like on Sundays because I was based in Penrith. I was going to Sydney and like go to a yoga class and get a coffee and then come back and just like go to a cafe and read a book and just try to do something kind of normal. But it was very, very intentional. Even in conversations with people, like I would kind of ban rowing chat and stuff, it's like
I
really
love
trying
that.
to,
Like,
yeah.
I think in the running world, and around a lot of runners, as you would have been around a lot of
Mm.
rowers, it's a very easy thing to do to just dive into conversation
Yeah,
about running. Like,
totally.
it's feels kind of cheap
Yeah.
or lazy.
Mhm.
So I find that a great rule to implement.
Yeah.
When you decided to like enter the Tokyo block,
Mm,
I'm just trying to structure this because I don't feel that many people at the moment they set goals that are like 4 or 5 years. And
mm,
like it ended up being 5 years for you, but would have started as a 4 year goal. Like, how did you approach a 4 year timeline? Because I feel now everybody wants things like in 6 months or a year, but you, and I think probably coming into Rio as well, would have
mm,
come off of 4 year block before that.
mhm.
So it's like, what was it like operating in these 4 year cycles?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and I think, again, coming with the maturity of it is, like, thinking back to, "Okay, here you are now. but what do I want to be in 4 years' time? And I think you have to be really targeted about where you're putting your energy. So, and a lot of it was almost like mentally how not how seriously I wanted to take it, but like what did I actually need to do the one percenters in the years leading up to develop like, the foundations or the building blocks that would be able to peak at a world championships each year. So we had the way that it's structured is we'd have like a selection event domestically to make the Australian team, even though I was at a training center. So it's really high pressure around other people that are pretty much on the Australian team all the time. There was only 25 of us. But I just thought, okay, we've got a world championship at the end of each season. And then you kind of go back to that of like, well, what boat do I need to get in to like, be in the best chance to have a good result there? And then, from that, the goal, I kind of structured it from like, okay, 4 years away, but how do I want to position myself each year that I was really stretched, but I also needed to focus on what I needed to. And,
Mm.
I when I came back to the Olympic team in 2017 or the Australian team, I had to really did kind of physiological testing, and I had to really work on kind of that low T2, T1 base. Like I'm very anaerobic,
Mhm.
and I'd over relied on that to try to get into the team. But when it came to like high pressure situations, if I'm always in the kind of threshold, other people, and I was keeping up with people when they're in their T2 and I'm in my threshold, when time to elevate, I would just kind of fall off. So I spent the first 2 years of that campaign really building out that building block. So then my threshold would just be above and beyond other people. But I came in and I told my coach, and I was like, this is what I'm focusing. I'm not going to be competitive in these things because I'm going to focus on something that I'm really bad at, or was a big development opportunity. And I really stuck to that. But I had key things that I wanted to achieve each year. And then, yeah, I think it was just being really strategic of like trying not to peak too soon. And also just like keeping things in context of like, okay, even if we had a good or bad result in 2018 or 2019, that didn't mean we were going to win in the Olympics,
Mm.
right? Of each year, kind of breaking it down to be like, okay, what was good, what needed to be improved on from the year before, and then implementing that into the next year.
Mm.
And then, taking the agency to be like, okay, this is what I want to develop on. For example, like the rowing machine is like our biggest like testing. And so the key workout for that of a selection of criteria is a 2 kilometer ergo and
Flat out.
flat out.
Yeah.
And so we have a 2K, we have a 5K, and a 30 minute.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like the main three ergos, but the 2K
But
is
a
like,
2K is still too long to be anaerobic.
yeah,
You
it's
need,
like this psycho, like aerobic, anaerobic
yeah.
sprint strength. Like it's just such a weird, it's like for a woman, it's like for a 2K ergo, it's going to be somewhere between 6.5 and 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just super brutal. I don't wish that on the world. Yeah.
I'm curious, how did you find trust
Mm.
in the long game when you were working on things that were weaknesses
Mm.
that were probably like really kind of gritty and not going well?
Yeah.
Like, how do you just believe that it's going to be okay?
I think it is that blind belief sometimes, right? And I think I'd made a promise to myself. So I had a lot of we can like go into this now of like for five more hours, but I had a lot of self-doubt in the we'll call it the Rio campaign. Like I really got in my own way.
So, say 2012 to
I would say
2016.
probably from like 1991 to 2026.
Yeah.
1991 to
Yeah.
2016. It's just these like very human things of insecurity or imposter syndrome
Mhm.
or body image stuff, like all this other stuff that I think is very amplified in high performance environments. And I drew a line in the sand because I used to just kind of be like the worst inner critic ever. And then I was like, all right, Rosie, well, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And I kind of made a really big promise to myself of like, you have to have blind trust that how do you get on your own team and how do you trust yourself and really not get rid of that like negative self-talk. And I just like, it really felt like a big, big leap of faith of like really eliminating kind of all that toxicity. And then it took probably a year to like really see the fruits of those labors. Like I think I sowed the seeds in 2017, 2016. And I think sometimes when you fail or miss out on something, you kind of have nothing to lose. Like I think when we were talking before of like that first run that you had that, you
Madeira.
didn't, you
Yeah.
didn't finish. And then you're like, oh, that's the worst case scenario. And you still have an amazing life.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, well, if this is how far I have to fall, it's kind of so fine. You know what I mean? Like there'll still
It's
be.
not that bad as you think. It's after it happens.
Yeah, like I remember when I missed out in 2016 and like being told, and it was on Valentine's Day. So for me, Valentine's Day is like a huge thing of like, it's meant to be like a day of love, right? And it was
Yeah.
like a day of genuine rejection of my hopes and dreams, And so like every day, every year for the rest of my life, I'm like, that's going to be such a moment. And I'm like, I don't know the significance of it, but it was
Mm.
just so, I remember like I was at a selection event and just being told like go home and being like, oh, so am I going to like train tomorrow? Like it didn't matter if I was not going to go to the Olympics that year. And it was like, the world is in like the plane ride back from Sydney to Melbourne. You just feel like the world is going to
Shattered.
end. And then it's like, you get a lot of perspective when you get into the real world of like, what an amazing opportunity to even like have the like
Mm.
to be so close to go to the Olympics. Like that's pretty insane. But in that little echo chamber, that seems like a failure. And I'm sure with like the running community as well, like sometimes those things, it just feels like it's such a big deal. And I think that is the beauty of, you know, I think maybe it's like the curse and the opportunity of like having the opportunity to do these things for like our pleasure or our genuine ambition and stuff.
Mm.
But then when we take it too seriously,
Yeah. I think there's
it's
still a
insane.
space though of like at that time it is a big
Yeah,
deal, but it's only when you can step out that you're like, big deal, but it is not the only deal.
totally. And I think it's like it's the same with like falling in love or like
Mm.
any form of vulnerability, right?
Which is
Like
in your palm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like that's a big thing that I've been working through especially in the last year of like genuinely putting yourself out there as authentic person and like being okay that that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Mm.
And it's a similar feeling of like, I think that's why people don't go for things. I'm not sure if that because it's like that feeling of going, I've left everything out on the table and it still
Yeah.
wasn't good enough. Like that is soul crushing,
Yeah.
but it's also, there's another side to it as well.
Yeah. It's I think like even with this podcast that is one thing I encourage because I think to put yourself out there is a risk.
Mm,
And a lot of us are risk adverse. But I think that kind of risk, kind of see risk as like a positive risk or a negative
mm.
risk. Negative is like where you are essentially putting someone else in harm or in harm's way, whereas a positive risk is like, well, if it doesn't work out, it was still like a worthwhile pursuit. Um, I forget where we were going with that. um, damn, lost my train of thought. On risk. Nah, I've actually lost it. Completely dropped the
Okay.
ball.
It's okay. We can edit it out.
No, there's no edits. I
We were
I
talking about
guess
ambition and like being like afraid to put yourself out there that things don't necessarily work out, but honoring
mm,
the like if you go for it and it doesn't work out, that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. But
definitely,
yeah.
yeah. Where would you say you are now as a risk taker and on that
Mm,
journey of like authenticity?
mm,
And I want to ask, like, did you feel like you were your authentic self during those years of
mm.
rowing?
I think it's something that I think about a lot because I think this is just where my thinking is at the moment. Like I think that we can have like as authentic as you can in certain environments. So like a big thing that I think of in my sport identity was like I couldn't be balanced and I
Mm,
couldn't kind of be authentic in all different parts of my life because it was in this really intense, super niche thing that like having balance or having health or having yeah, like conversations outside of, sport or talking about the future or like, long term stuff or, questioning authority. But, like all these things is really difficult because, for a sport like rowing, like I do have a dual passport, so I have rowed for, 2 countries, but a lot of people, it's not like a job that like if you don't agree with the like authority or the way that it's run, you can't just change jobs
Mm.
because you can't change countries,
This is
right?
something that we've talked about and I find
Mm,
super interesting because, as you said, there's only one kind of body,
yeah.
which is the rowing body, and you can't then leave that.
No. Yeah, and I think that like there has to be like I think what helps me a lot in my rowing days was understanding that it was a game, not in like the psycho survivor way, but like
Mm,
you are going to the Olympic Games. It's like it is something that is there is a lot of play to it. There is meant to be an extension of self, but it's a really intense experience.
mm,
And I think intensity and like at that level, it's impossible to have balance. So I think I really like over indexed a very particular part of my personality. Very like attention to detail, very structured, very disciplined,
mhm.
able to like shut out the world, almost be like disconnected from other things. But it's just been, and this was a bit of a moment that I had the other day, it was like, there's all these different parts of myself that like I now have the opportunity to develop.
Mhm.
And then the utter acceptance of like I'll probably never be to that like extreme outstanding version of me in another domain because I don't want to just be doing one thing anymore. Like
Yeah.
I want to kind of spread my eggs into different baskets now.
Mhm.
Like I want to have balance and I want to consider others and I want to, for me, the kind of that creative side of me of like sitting in the gray area and exploring and perpetually being a student and kind of debunking assumptions and myths and attitudes that I have about myself, I think kind of really challenges the way the system's thinking that I had before. And I love that. But I also think that I have this toolkit of knowing how to really lock into something sometimes
Yeah.
and actually knowing that that's kind of like a sometimes mentality, not an all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I think in, maybe in running as well, it could be interesting of being like, what you do is for the pleasure of it. But like when you're in the race, you're only thinking about the race. You're thinking about your nutrition and your
Completely.
hydration. And like that doesn't mean that you're obsessive. It's like, no, you're just doing the best at that moment and you're not like sabotaging yourself. And I think that's been the biggest learning for me of like this mentality is not just like a real binary way of thinking. It's like this kind of kaleidoscope of who you are that like in some ways like I
I
can
like
be
it.
10 minutes late to something, but in other ways, like being late is bad, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, but it's not a one size fits all. Whereas like in sport, like if I missed a race, if I missed my rowing race by a minute, I wouldn't have been able to go to the Olympic final.
Yeah.
By 5 seconds, you would miss out. So it's like, I think that's just an example of it. But I think that's been the biggest learning. And I think a big challenge for sports people is like, it's not a yes or a no. There's so
Mhm.
much in between.
Do you think sport is one of the greatest teachers?
Mm.
And I say this because when I look at all of my really close friends, a lot of them have played sport at a very intense level.
Mm.
And I think we all have our different like traumas
Yeah.
as such,
Big or little T, yeah,
little
yeah,
t.
yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have these things that sport has impacted us with and that we're working on.
Mm,
But once you step out of it and into the world, you're like, well, I have these tools,
mm,
which are pretty incredible.
totally. Yeah, I do. The people that I don't know if it's necessarily sport. I think a lot of people that I surround myself with now, I'm kind of coming back to that. But all I knew, I think I'd kind of thought before, it was like the athlete mentality was a catch-all.
Mm,
But there's a lot of athletes that I meet now that I really can't relate to.
definitely.
So I don't know if like we've kind of been able to find ourselves in this little beautiful
A sweet
niche.
little bubble, yeah.
And I'm kind of okay with that, because it's like it's the happiest that I've probably ever had with my approach to physical activity is like maybe all of us have kind of seen like the extreme nature of it and then coming
Yeah.
back to it.
Yeah, this was a chat was also curious and enjoyed being a part of, and I feel like I'm on a somewhat tangential journey at the moment in terms of I've gone after ultra running at times
Mm,
with a very not a completely extreme approach, but say like moving to the mountains.
mm.
All I want to do is
You've made decisions.
to run far and
Yeah,
get really good at running far.
yeah.
But at the moment, it's like, okay, I'm nurturing a relationship, nurturing a community,
Mm,
a brand, like new friendships, and my capacity or and probably more so my willingness to run is a
mm,
lot lower. And but I'm feeling okay with not being as physically capable as I was.
mm.
But I haven't lost my capability, but like my ability to output
Yeah,
is not as high.
yeah,
Like what you were saying with your deadlift or
yeah, yeah.
beforehand. And yeah, I guess how does it feel kind of nurturing these other things? And the one thing that you were very good at,
Mm.
the capacities kind of lowers
It's
bit by bit.
below low now.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a really kind of death to the ego, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking this morning. I'm like, is it ego death? But I think that there is no right or wrong
Mm,
answer. And I also think that, it depends on the where you are in your life. Like I've definitely over the last 5 years. So I've officially wrapped up in 2022. So I took a year to decide, and then was like, yeah, I've done everything that I want to do. And the really big reason why I decided to kind of drop mic when I was at the top was like I knew what it took. And I was kind of a leader. I was on like the athlete commissions, and I was holding a leadership position, and to come back as like a defending Olympic champion. And also the Olympic campaign was getting back on the cycle, so it was only gonna be a 3-year cycle.
mhm,
So it was 5 year and 3 year. And I knew kind of all I don't like calling them sacrifices because I think that we all make big choices that like, no one is holding a gun to our head. Like
mm,
it may feel like that, but like you can opt out at any point. Mm. And I was just thinking for a long time, I'm like, am I willing to kind of do what it takes knowing that and actually go again, but also elevate and find something within that's going to elevate me to the next level. And I was making a lot of excuses. And then I just had this moment of like, I'm so driven that I'm like,
mm.
if I was going to do it, I would do it with no excuses.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the moment that I'm done. And I think that that's what's been this journey now of like actually tapping into my intuition of like, okay, what feels right for right now? Because
Yeah.
like it was a kind of like a landing of the plane the last 5 years. I think I chased intensity in different formats. So like, I went and got a really intense corporate job straight away. And then I went and did my MBA at Oxford, which is a 1 year intensive program. And I was
Wow.
around
Yeah.
like, a lot of really,
Elite academics.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of needed to match the intensity. And then I got home and it kind of felt like a landing of the plane of like, I was just thinking about business. I was just thinking about work for a year. And then I came back last year and I was pretty burnt out. And I was like, okay, I've just like kind of just over indexed on different parts of me. Like, this
Mm,
is a year of who I want to be, kind of to answer the question at the top of the thing. It was like, who are you? And I think I took a year to be like, what do I really value? And it just like really made me understand of like, and I just went like hardcore into therapy and was just like, I need to kind of like shift some stuff around and just like actually going, what am I doing anything for? Because I was really tired and almost like I was doing all these amazing things. And by the end of it, I just was kind of, I had no awe. I was just kind of a bit numb. And so I think that, and even with sport or exercise, I sometimes was just doing it because that's what I'd, always do something in the morning, even though I was so tired or had like 2 hours of sleep or like, just always saying yes to something. And I think like releasing the grip a little bit has been so liberating because now no matter what I do, even if sometimes I do heaps of exercise one week or another week I'm spending heaps of times with friends or the other week I'm working really hard in my job, but like these are the decisions that I wanna do, and it's like how you zoom out and be like, on net, is that balanced, right?
Yeah. I
And
kind of
yeah.
visualize it as like, say your MBA was this one bright color of orange,
Mm.
and then rowing was this one bright color, but now it's like you're painting and dabbling with like lots of different colors and
Yeah,
like actually building
really
out
good.
this like
Yeah,
complete
yeah.
picture.
And then it's yeah, as you zoom out, those colors that were like massive things that was the only thing in your like vision. If you
Yeah.
zoom out as now like 5% of it.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
love that. Yeah, that's like the most perfect way to
Mm.
describe it.
Because I guess my observation on you at the moment is like you're learning about yourself in so many different ways.
Mm,
And I just think it's like every new learning is like a different color of
mm,
Rosie, which
totally.
is mad.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
um, I guess a theme that we have touched on already, but I really kind of want to like crack it open because I know you're writing about it a lot on Substack
Mm,
is this idea of change.
mhm,
And obviously, to go from Olympic champion to corporate to Oxford to therapy to building community and kind of like laying roots at the
mm.
moment in some form. Um, I was like, I don't want to take the words out of
No,
your mouth,
yeah,
but I was
do
like,
it.
I think
That's
you're
it.
just
Good.
laying
Yeah,
roots.
exactly what I'm
um,
doing.
that used to like really almost like trigger me because I was like, no, I'm just someone that bounces around
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
But
No,
I'm
it's a
like,
huge thing.
and then to actually accept it and be like, no, I am building
Yeah.
roots. You're undergoing a lot of change. What does, similar to the first question, but like, what does change mean to you at the moment?
Mm.
And then I'd love to kind of unpack like this defining of
Mm.
change.
The slippery guy that it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, so I guess for context, so I don't have that the kind of the job that really was quite not balanced. I mean, I've actually moved into Bunnings Warehouse where I work now, and I'm in the people and culture team, and the title that I have now is called change partner. So the role that I do on a day to day is obviously Bunnings is an amazing brand. I think like everyone listening to this podcast in Australia, I'm sure you live within 5 minutes of it,
Yeah.
right? It's like it is God, it's everywhere in the veins of Australian culture. Um, but they're going through an amazing amount of change in terms of, for example, getting more online in the business or kind of introducing more streamlined processes or getting more
Uber
efficient.
delivery.
Uber deliveries coming online.
Insane.
It's in, like it's just but the thing is going like the brand of what everyone thinks Bunnings is. How like we are an amazing low cost operator and customer experience is like fundamental for, the DNA of our culture and the culture is so strong. Like I've never felt genuinely so valued and so aligned to a company ever. Like I can just walk in and be me and like I just feel so valued. It's just like but I took all of last year to be like that was another thing of last year of going like, what I wanna do for work and like, how do I wanna feel every single day? Like, what are the values that I actually have as a person? And then finding because it kind of so I know this is a side quest, but like
We got
we've
plenty of
got, we've
time for
got
side
plenty of
quests.
time. But I kind of felt like I was kind of, I guess, swimming through the different colors, like cross current for a long time. And everything has felt very, very difficult because I just felt like I haven't really been able to just be me. And I kind of knew there would be a moment in time where I would like turn 90 degrees,
And take your goggles off.
take my goggles off and open my eyes and just lie, like face up in the sun and just like let it take me,
Yeah.
like, but it's been honestly a really big battle for a long time. And I just knew there would be a moment of time where like I could just do that and it would start to you effort to get the ease and effort, right? Um, and that took probably a year to find my narrative of where I want to be in terms of like a type of employment that I want. Like I think kind of having that entrepreneurial spirit on the side is really amazing, but what are all the things that are really important to me? And I just kind of fell in love with all the like intangibles that Bunnings has. And then kind of talking and getting interviewed there, I was realizing that like what a unique challenge to have of like, how do we honor the way that Bunnings is, but not letting the past hold us back? That we need to innovate and we need to
Wow, so aligned with your journey, honoring who
Totally.
you were, but
Yeah,
then growing into the person that you want to be,
totally. And then I was, because I
and
work in
not
talking.
alienating
Yeah.
alienating the past either.
And like with that's like what has made Bunnings there is like the most beautiful part of it. Like it's just so epic. But we need to continue to evolve. But like how do we do that? Because we have people that have been there for 60 years, 70 years. Like we've got people that are, you get a badge every 5 years that you've
Yeah.
been there. And then I will walk around to my colleagues and they've got like 20, 30-year tenures, like, and it's no biggie. Like you're a new starter until you've been there for 5 years, which is just like, you know, I'm in the inception of my journey there.
Yeah.
But I think with anything that's so strong, and I think also like this has nothing to do with Bunnings, and I'm a bit curious with this, but I think in like an Australian culture, we never really want to kind of like move through and really own who we are. Like I
Mm,
think sometimes like we're really afraid of this tall poppy syndrome vibes, which I
yeah.
really experience on a day to day. And I think, another thing with Bunnings is like you can't deny that that's a big player, right?
Yeah.
We are a big beast, and how do we continue to lead from the front?
Mm,
And so it's so aligned to like everything that I'm doing because I think even in my rowing journey, I had a mindset shift of like the conversation isn't if I'm going to be in the Olympic team, it's what boat am I going to be in,
yeah.
which is on the offense, right?
Yeah.
And you're not being
And
like,
when did you implement that mentality?
I think like I was always ranked within the top like, 2 or 3 people
Mm-hmm.
that I was competing against in rowing from like 2018. In the first year I came back from my like reckoning of coming back into the Olympic team, I on the Australian team, I'd came back in 2017 and then
The comeback
the
era.
comeback era.
I know that because Rosie wore a comeback era jacket
At speed notes the other day.
at speed note.
Just, something that you don't think too, but yeah, it was like like my first year back, um, I was the only seat change for a crew that had won the world championships the year before. I was the only seat change.
Does that mean you went from out of the boat to in the boat?
I went from being in 2016 or 2017. Sorry, I was like, I don't think I told you this, but so in like in 2016 when the Olympics were on, I was in Chile and I was working on a lemon farm picking lemons. I like just went and did like worked in the backpackers and did all this other stuff. And I was like, I want to be off the grid when the Olympics is on. Like I
Yeah.
was literally picking lemons on a lemon farm in the middle of Chile.
How'd you find the lemon farm?
I just like got on woofing, the work away. And I was like, I needed to be away. And then I came back and I was a no one in 2017. And then I came in and I got to the top boat and pushed like a person who was a world champion out and I hadn't even been to the Olympics before. Like just went straight for the bullseye, right?
Lemon farm.
And then, that was a 2018
Yeah.
world champion. So it was like I couldn't deny that the way that I'd kind of
Mm.
changed my mentality. I don't know. What are we even talking
Oh, we were
about?
talking about
Oh,
being on the offense.
we're talking about
until Poppy
Bunnings.
and Bunny's been a big dog.
We're
And
talking about change.
yeah,
Yeah.
but how they undeniably are just like, we are a big player.
Yeah, and owning it.
that.
Yeah, and not in a cocky way. And I think that, like, that's something that I think about a lot, especially being a female who's 6 foot tall, who's got, 2 degrees, who's an Olympic champ, like all these things. Like I can't deny that I've got some like jewels on my crown,
Yeah.
and I have to really own that but not in a way that's entitled.
Mm.
And I think it would be really easy to feel like human things don't happen to me, but they absolutely do. And so this kind of change journey, kind of going back to, is like I've become like so fascinated in the fact that like we hate change. Like people hate the idea of change.
Yeah.
But it's the only constant. And I just think that, I was thinking the other day, like we had a conversation of like everything that you do, what is the Venn diagram? Like, what's the crossover? And I've just had this revelation of like, it's about change and like, yeah, how do you honor the past but not let it hold you back? Like, how do you always like learn from what's happened, but, really like deal with it and don't like, if something was a negative experience, don't bucket it as like 100% negative because there was always something positive out of it. It's like the yin and yang, or like something on not net was positive, but there's some negative stuff. So like, at the Olympic Games, I was at the Tokyo COVID impacted one. So there was no crowd. We didn't have the, big song and dance that came. I had 2 weeks hotel quarantine. I had a breakup with like this guy I was dating for a few years. Like all these other things happened simultaneously. Like the actual everything outside of the like 6 minutes and 14 seconds of the Olympic, like the actual race, which is why we were there,
Mm.
which was like the most perfect race ever, like objectively was really shit.
2K?
2K.
Oh, that's humming.
It's humming. But you know what it's like, and I think I held on to a lot of like, I felt like I was just constantly getting double bounced on a trampoline the
Yeah.
last few years because like my identity has changed because I'm Olympic champion now. But I kind of probably until last year was never talking about all like the yucky stuff that happened around it. So I
Yeah.
I never like really consolidated it.
Is that like not discussing the yuckiness part of like Tool Poppy,
Mm,
do you think? Or is it more like an authenticity piece?
I I think it's I think it's both.
Mm.
Like even when I was going through this breakup, for example, like I was trying to talk about to someone that I felt sad because I'd just had a breakup, but they're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. Like you're
Yeah.
an Olympic champion now." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, so now I can't feel these things.
Can't feel sad.
Can't feel
Yeah.
sad." Or like, all these other things that it kind of was just felt like everything else was redacted from it because this good thing had happened, and it really made me think a lot about, I think in life we try to like really binary good and bad experiences instead of like if something was really challenging, but what was like the beauty or like some of the really nice moments or the like transformative moments that came with that. But then also like we were saying before of like, really honoring if you're sad about something or like the run that you didn't finish or like, the things that I've had, like the biggest thing I'm working through is like sometimes we don't need to reframe it. We
Mm.
don't have to be like, yeah, but this happened. It's like just like meet the emotion where it was at, honor it, and just like let it kind of die out as it like let it just have its natural death instead of
Yeah.
like pushing it away and then putting it in a cupboard and then it'll turn into this really maladaptive beast that ends up, you have a half midlife crisis or something, like it's going to come out at some point, but just
Mm.
like how quickly can you honor it and just like give it the airspace and then move on with it and it'll always just be part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you I'm just trying to think of like it's a pretty amazing thing to like achieve all of this, but then be like, oh, I want to feel more human. I want to
Mm,
add these colors into my life.
mm,
And this will probably sound like a really dumb question, but
mm,
like, how did you approach, say, going to therapy and being like,
mm,
I'm going to rip the handbrake and just work on myself?
mm.
Because like
It's a
I
really
have
good
friends
question.
asking me now, like, how do I find a therapist? Or
Mm,
I think there's a lot of people out there that would like to go through this process and
mm,
whether it's super intensive or just a little bit, but like,
yeah.
where do you begin? And I think what it makes it even more impressive is like you had so much like heat coming in, right? So
So
you could
yeah.
have just stayed on the gas.
Yeah, totally. It would have been easy. Like even I was thinking this morning of like the types of jobs that I kind of would have gone for a year ago if I hadn't have done
Mm,
this work, and it would have been the real transferable skills from sport. So like a really difficult like consulting job of like there's this notorious like called like the three consulting firms. They're called the MBBs, and they're like very like they're amazing and attract like some of the smartest people in the world, but like they're notorious that you're not going to leave the office till midnight. Like
yeah.
they attract this like really dogged personality, which is what I had for a long time. And I was approached by some of them to kind of interview last year. And then I really challenged myself being like, this will like it actually that discomfort is very familiar to me. And that sacrifice and the kind of, making a lot of compromises or decisions. And to actually be like, I know what that feels like. How do I explore other? But to answer your question about the therapy thing, so I probably didn't see. I saw like a sports psych when I was growing and very sports specific. But when I was leaving Oxford, one of my best friends there, she This is just like so left of field, but she was like a captain on a sea ship for the US military.
Yeah, wow.
So she was a Coast Guard captain, and she had a therapist and we left. She left the military and I left rowing at similar times, and we really bonded over this. Is like so strange. But it made so much sense. It's like we were both kind of coming in as civilians to the real world and
Yeah.
coming into Oxford, and like we really bonded of like very male dominated, kind of talked about all these things that we couldn't, because she was super femme and just like had really leaned into like all her like wonderful feminine energy and just is like so authentic and just love her to bits. And then she actually introduced me to her therapist who deals with people that leave the military. And so this one was actually in the US. And so I was talking to her for a while because this woman also was in the military and then went into academia and then went into yoga and then
Mhm.
now is kind of doing this like life coaching and therapy.
Amazing.
And I think to like it was such a cute thing to actually like it's such so niche, and I was speaking to her for a little bit, but it was just virtual. And then I think that kind of not having that face to face is what it was kind of that like introductions. I don't think I was ready to like really be in the room. I
Mm.
kind of almost needed just to like get all the gunk out first of just like talking and talking and talking and talking. And then I've got back to Australia and I thought, I think I just need to be like, I'm ready to kind of have this in person experience. And was talking to some people that like in my Olympic network, and there's actually like an elite athlete mental health care plan they've just developed where you can get free therapy for the rest of your life.
Amazing.
And then the and then it turns out the woman that I'm like now connected with is like literally on Wellington Street down the road here.
Wild.
So it's like it just couldn't like it's 2 kilometers away from the house. So
Yeah.
and I've been working with her really solidly for like a year now. And now I'm in a place where like it's just kind of check-ins and like
Mm.
we're really getting into some juicy stuff now, but it's like it's refined so much, whereas before it just had to be word vomit and like to actually I think that first step of almost asking for help, like I felt initially quite resentful coming back to Australia because I had lived this very like, yeah, flighty life.
Yeah.
And then to establish roots, like what you were saying before, was like it felt really suffocating. And I think the psych that I have now, like she made a really good point. And because I was like, I don't know if I want to be in Australia, like it just feels for XYZ. And she's like, do you think that you're really agitated from the place being Melbourne or like the process of where you are in your life right now?
Well,
Yeah.
what did you say, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, yeah, I was like, "Well, it's up," because she's like, "What?" And she's so good because she just like can pin like bop me in the nose like a
Yeah.
little, yeah, like the whack a mole. She just goes like,
Yeah.
"Boop,"
Gotcha.
yeah. And I was like, "Damn you, Caitlin." Um, but she was like, "Well, where else would you want to be?" And I was like, "Oh."
That's that question where and I think about that with running or a physical environment,
Mm,
and I always ask myself that, say, with, respect to running, and I look at people that are on podiums, and I'm like, "But do you want their life?"
mm,
And then I think about it from a living situation, I'm like, "But you wouldn't be any happier if you were in this place that I built up in my mind," or
exactly.
like.
Yeah, and I think that that was a real, like, kind of that lanced the boil a little bit
Mm.
where she was like, and I was like, "You're right, it's the process." I was so unwilling to surrender to where I was and, like, let, like, just it all out and to actually accept that I really wanna my life to be different now, but
Mhm.
I just don't have the skills. I didn't have the skills at the time to know what it feels like to feel grounded and to feel like I have consistency or,
Mm.
like, the more, like, depths of relationships rather than a really big breadth of experience, and I think that was kind of the formative thing of like, okay, well, my theme last year was surrender, and then now this year is kind of more building. Um, but I think it was like really understanding that like I would have this level of agitation no matter where I was, and to
Yeah.
actually move around
Yeah.
was actually not getting to the root cause of what I needed to work through. So
Mhm.
Yeah, that's been I think when we were talking at the top of the conversation of, like, really challenging your own attitudes because in my personal experience, that's been from a place of, um, like, self-preservation or, like, self-safety of, like, trying to, like, project on outward instead of looking within and being like,
Mm,
what can I control and what do I need to give to myself to create the life that I want?" So it's, like, been this really big, like, taking agency and ownership of my life.
yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel a hard experience rowing or competing
Mm.
compares, and maybe they're not comparable, but compares to the hard work of understanding yourself? Because
Mm.
they're both very hard at times
Mm.
in different
Good
ways.
question. I think the parallels is, like, it's the long game,
Mhm.
right? To actually do anything, like, that's meaningful change is the long term. And I think that we live in a society that rewards quick wins and rewards instant gratification.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about anything now, it's like, how many likes did you get? What are you like, what's trending? That, that quick fix stuff. And I think that what I learnt from rowing was, like, especially going from seeking the quick wins in the Rio era to the Tokyo era was like, you've gotta really like, be where your feet are and sit in the discomfort, and I think with rowing, like, you're in so much the kind of the definition of discomfort has changed a lot, but I think, like, the beautiful thing about rowing is, like, you have a lot of time just to be in your own thoughts, which it can be so confronting.
Mm.
But when you, like, kinda learn to dance with the devil, it's like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like it's very freeing and,
Yeah.
like and I think only recently, I've my theme at the moment is, like, I've kind of had a 5 years of, like, not really being super disciplined, and I'm kind of coming back to discipline again, but, like, in a really completely different way of, like, a discipline is, like, how can I challenge myself to be as present as possible? Like, if I just say go to yoga or go to somewhere, like, how intentional and, like, disciplined I can be exactly there. And I think that those things, I think, is, like, the beautiful thing that I learned with rowing, but I think before I kind of thought the going in and being disciplined and, like, being really focused was, like, such a tunnel vision that, like, everything else has to go, and I guess it's going back to the tools is like,
Mm.
okay, I can focus in for this hour of the yoga class or whatever that is and just be completely there, but that doesn't mean I'm, like, locked in for the rest of my life or, like, there's so many
Yeah.
other things that I
Yeah.
wanna take into consideration,
Yeah.
so, yeah. What do you think?
It's like for me, I think sometimes when I'm doing a really hard thing with running,
Mm,
it's very much in my body.
mm,
There are days where it's like the hard thing is dealing with my head
yeah,
and like how you overcome the talk.
mm,
Whereas the hard days when I leave a psychologist appointment, it's just like feels like I'm all in my head. And then
mm.
it's just like packed it and it could explode. And I don't know, I think with the psychologist appointment it needs space
Mm,
and to be slept on.
yeah,
Um but I think like, and I know we've talked about this and this was a kind of loaded question if I wanted to springboard off it, but was like sometimes the hard thing of running or endurance sport, you're doing it because it's an escape.
mm,
Whereas with psychology or therapy, the hard thing is because you're not escaping,
yeah,
you're sitting
yeah,
and confronting.
mm,
So they're both hard, but one's going inwards and one is just like going out.
yeah.
Not even going outward, it's just like maintaining this
Mhm.
gap.
It's totally and, like, so Ryan, who actually introduced Ari, your girlfriend, and myself, like, we went to one of his master classes the other day because he's into his long distance running as well, and he's amazing kind of have learnt so much from him, and he draws a lot from Buddhist philosophy, and he was just saying, like, for him, someone was asking, like, what was a meditation masterclass of, like, is your when you're doing
Mm.
medication yeah, when
When
you're
you're
meditating,
meditating.
what a little
Yeah.
yeah, but it was like, because on his runs, it's like, do you get into flow state when you're running, or is it a form of meditation? And he was like, you can have he goes, "No, the running is actually not, like, transformative to me. Like, I don't come back a different it's, like, in this flow state that I don't think I actually become a better person." And he was talking about, like, altered states and altered traits. And he goes, "When I'm running, I'm just kind of like I kind of can go numb and just, like, be free in my mind and, like, nothing I come back and I'm still, like, the same person." But he's
Yeah.
like, "When I sit down and meditate in the morning, like, I am altering traits of me." And I just
Well,
thought it was, like, such a different thing of he's like, "When I sit and, like, actually walk into the darkness," or that was a big thing of when I was first coming back to Australia a couple of years ago. Like, one of my best friends, who's a bit of a big sister of mine, I used to row with her in my undergrad, and she lost her mum when she was 20, and she took a long time to really, like, come to terms with that grieving. And I was coming back, and I just didn't wanna come back to Australia. And then she's a real creative. And she just, like, one of the last things was, like, hugging me about to go to the airport, and she's like, "Rosie, go home and walk into the darkness." And I was like, "Oh, I have goosebumps thinking about it." And I think
did
that
you get on the flight and just
I
cry?
did. No, I was like, "It's too numb." It's like, now then I
Yeah.
can cry. But it was like, to walk in the darkness is really scary. And I think with what Ryan was saying was like, I think for, getting into flow state is a really beautiful thing, but, like, I don't think that I've ever really had, like, epiphanies when I'm like, I think I've come to peace and, like, I feel really good after, but I think in terms of, like, when I've had the things of, like, this is what I was doing before and this is what I wanna do now, has usually been through meditation or doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that both are very valid, but I think the biggest thing for me was, like, a biggest epiphany that I had coming away from sport and, like, yeah, I probably until recently, I was like, "Oh, I can't get back in that flow state." Like, I haven't had that, like, same feeling of, like, oneness with nature that I had with rowing or my teammates, where you're just feeling, like, so absorbed. It's almost like a drug, right? And and then I'm like, "Well, is that actually what I'm looking for?"
Mm.
Because I think that that's such an extreme kind of level of detachment, like your brain and your body, that I felt that I was probably seeking for again when I left sport. But a lot of the work that I do in yoga now is like, how do I actually feel, like, connected to my mind and my body? And, like,
Yeah.
if
How do you
my
attach?
yeah, so,
Yeah.
like, before I was, like, because I started doing, like, yoga and meditation when I was, like, probably 2012. And I used it to, like, if I was in physical pain, and, like, the sport of rowing attracts, like, this sadistic pain that you have to learn to live with. And I had learned how to, like, almost spiritually bypass these things, and actually just be
Mm.
able to, like, almost view myself from above when my body and my mind was screaming at me to stop. And, like, that's the number one thing that you don't do in rowing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm kind
You
of
don't
like,
stop? Is that
you don't
what
stop in
that's
rowing.
the number one thing you
You
don't do?
don't
Yeah.
stop, and that is, like, the big, like, scarlet letter that you're gonna get. Like, you will be I'm sure everyone understands the Sally Robbins kind of, who stopped the Olympic Games in 2004. That was, like, a big scandal. Mm. But for now, it's so different because if I feel a niggle, like I was, like, saying before we chatted, like, I was doing a deadlift at the gym the other day, and I felt, like, my back go a little bit, and I was like, "I need to stop immediately because I'm about to go to work, and if I pulled my back, I'm not gonna be like they're not gonna think I'm a champion because I can't
No.
walk," like,
Yeah.
I won't be able to sit down and do my job. So it's like, to actually tap back into my intuition and instincts has been, like, the biggest learning of, like, okay, because I need to stop now, that doesn't make me weak.
Mhm.
Even though before the narrative was like, if you stop, you are weak.
Yeah.
But I think it comes with this is in such an extreme measure that I think actually that positive stress is really good at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once again, a toolkit.
Yeah. I was gonna ask about the toolkit before, but I think what's coming up first is that change for you is like a redefining of
Mm.
so many parts of your life and yeah, approaches and mindsets and
Mm.
attitudes. Like, do you see change as a tool?
I don't think that change is the right word,
Yeah.
and I don't know what the word is,
Mm.
because I think also some like, people think sometimes change means that you have to do something different. So, like, I got really itchy feet a few weeks ago because it's the longest I've been, one place for a while, and I was like, "The biggest change that you can do right now is to do nothing
Yeah.
and to just keep doing what you're doing," you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I I
Because not
don't.
to change would be to keep changing
Y
locations
Totally, like, that is
as of the life you were living.
exactly, or
Yeah.
like what I was saying before of, like, getting the job that demanded what I already knew I was really good at. I think that that's just kind of transplanting things over to, one color, right?
Mhm.
Maybe different hue,
Yeah, just
and
changing
different
the slider.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to really figure out when we talk about change, because that I think it evokes a really negative response from a lot of people, but, like, is the word, like, iteration? Is the
Yeah.
word building, evolving, like, value creation? Like, that's
It's
the
kind of all of them, right? It's
yeah,
like building
adaption.
is like just adding something from the past,
Mm,
like on top of it or beside it,
totally.
like
But then also, like, I know a lot of the work that I do at the moment is, like, how are we gonna simplify stuff?
yeah, how do you take stuff down?
So it's like, so I don't know, is it more of like a 3 or 4 dimensional thing that we're looking at now? Because I think as we get better at something, we kind of can look at it from different angles. And so, like, that's kind of what I'm really wrestling with, is like, when we're talking about change, what do we actually mean? And I'm kind of on this journey and I'm trying to do it live because I'm like, I don't know the answer to the question, but I don't think I have the
Yeah.
words just for it yet, but I can feel there is this like cosmic shift within
Mm.
and it feels really good, you know? So it's like,
So keep rolling with that.
yeah. And it's like, so how do you just like keep pulling at little threads and just
Yeah.
kind of running that to the shore and be like, that usually opens up a massive big, like, even meeting you and seeing like the crossover between sport and art is so inspiring to me. And like, it's really like even when we did the notes thing and did the little poems for that thing, like,
Yeah.
I just like couldn't stop writing poems. And I was at work being like, I need to do this, but I'm like, how
Once you
cool.
start, it just
And then it's like, that's something that, 4 months ago, I wouldn't have even like, I didn't even like, I've always loved poetry, but now I'm like, like, this is something that I really wanna, like, explore more. So it's like, I don't I don't know if there's the right word for it, and maybe because, like, even we went and saw Sarah Wilson the other day
mm,
of, like, the big thing of, like, kind of her synopsis is the idea that, we are really complex systems with really complex
yeah.
systems within systems, and we're kinda gonna by trying to change things all the time, we're creating more complex systems,
Yeah.
which is actually not simplifying.
No, and that additional complexity is what can topple us.
Exactly. And so that's I think I'm very inspired. I'm reading her book at the moment is like, okay, so is a lot of this undoing, and then we can kind of build from that. But like, so I think the writing is really helping me put words to the unknown and things that maybe don't have, I'm sure they've been explored in other ways, and, like,
Mhm.
we're probably nothing that we do is original, right? Like,
No,
every time I have, like, a grand idea that I'm gonna be this, like,
someone else has
social
already had
yeah.
it, yeah.
Like, the other day where I'm like, "I wanna be a social philosopher," and then I was, like, looking at all these things, I'm like, everything that I've ever thought of, and I think it's revolutionary, someone else did it, like, 100 years ago. So it's but how do we like, is it our duty to bring it into life in 2026? Maybe that's our role
I
as
think so.
creators, yeah.
I really do think so because it's the idea might not be original, but your path to get there was.
Yeah.
It was like,
Or it's uniquely yours.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on color, that is kind of like a welcome change in hue.
Mm,
Like it's just subtle, but it helps in this day and age.
totally.
But yeah, I was thinking about Sarah throughout your dialogue. And I think being on a podcast, I just want to have these like very like squared off boxed takeaways, but it's never like that. It's
Mm,
so gray. Change is complex,
mm,
and to define something is almost to then put it back into a binary form.
mm,
Even though we want other things, it's like it is. Some days it is building. Some days it is iteration, and it's
mm,
sometimes I just think it's like the system doesn't hold it.
mm.
Because it's like, you can't one day go to Bunnings and be like, "I'm the iteration master today," and then next week be like, "I'm the building queen," and then
Exactly.
be
And
like,
then give me a tool belt. Oh, no, that's
yeah.
not the right one. Yeah.
It's like it's not made to deal with that much change in definition. And
Yeah. But I think that I was reading this thing this morning of like, the future of, so I sit within strategic HR is kind of
yeah,
where I'm in my professional world is where I want to sit. And interestingly, the future of, so this is another little fact, but like what I find fascinating is the future of kind of HR is that the HR function and the technology function are going to be one. So
yeah,
the people that are like the head of HR will be the head of technology and HR because it's so interlinked in the corporate world now.
well,
Which is, but these things that are so, and then what I was reading on this morning was like the the future of leadership is like sitting with paradoxes.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the one example is like the only the only constant is change, or like all these other things that we just say off the cuff, but like or less is more, all these other things, but like we live in a paradoxical world,
mm,
and I think the future of corporate, which I'm really excited about, or maybe the kind of the niche corporate that I want to sit in is like sitting in that complexity. I'm so proud of Bunnings that they're like we're a warehouse, but we're also drive community, and we want to have like Peking Duck do a rave in one of our warehouses. It's like they're
sick,
so agile and like,
yeah,
and I think that that is so refreshing as an Australian brand too, because I think that we are really risk adverse, and I'm so proud to work at an organization that's like, they're doing their part to be really good citizens of Australia, but also being like, yeah, we need to change, and it's really, really hard, and we're kind of facing it head on. So but I think that that's surra the biggest learning that I've had is like, I don't think there's a right or wrong, because I think that, you know, everything is subjective, but how do you put yourself in an environment where you can have conversations like this and like actually be like, I don't know what the takeaway was, but I've
yeah,
got something to think about.
yeah. That's always been the goal of this. Is like I just want to mull on a topic,
Yeah.
like just jam out, because what I think today will change next week.
Yeah. And what a like a moment in time.
Absolutely.
Totally.
What would you like to see more of, like off all your experiences and passions and now your
Mm.
current journey? It's like whether it's in an elite athlete sphere or in a corporate sphere
Mm.
or in just a day-to-day civilian sphere,
Yeah.
communities, what would you like to see more of?
Accountability. Um, I think it's even kind of going back to what we were talking before of like, if you really go for something and you put it all out there and you're 100% accountable for it, it's really, really scary, right? But that's the only place that you grow. If you're like, I did everything that I could and I dotted all my I's and crossed my T's, but I like went for it and I will live or die by this result. And I think that like accountability in relationships, or accountability of how you fit in the part of a whole and community,
Mm,
and like that interdependence of it.
yeah,
And I think that that is the thing that I'm really attracted to at the moment is like, who are the people that are taking accountability of their life, and who are like, especially if things don't go to plan, of being like, yep, I own that, but what can we learn from it? I find that just like so good, and not trying to be like, oh, that person's fault, or like the yeah, but this, or all this other stuff. That really just like is chalk, like, is kind of, what is it, nails on a chalkboard to me.
yeah,
And I think that that is like the biggest thing that I would love to see more of is like, okay, in every single thing that you do, knowing that you're not gonna get it right all the time, but, like, how can you be really accountable, and how do you, yeah, find the people that are aligned in that too, because I think that there's real beauty in that.
Definitely. And do you think that didn't exist in rowing or
Mm.
in corporate situations? Is that why you'd like to see more of it?
Yeah, well, I think kind of using myself almost as like a case study in the Rio era is like I really didn't take accountability. I mean, I was also like 22 at the time or whatever, but like I was relying on other people to make the right decision for
Yeah.
me. And I was relying on people to give me like, instead of being like, this is what I want and this is what I need to do and this is how I'm going to go about it. And I think, what came from that is when I came back into the Tokyo era, and then even now of going out like this took the job that I have now, the life that I have now, like, it took like a year to develop. But like there was a moment when I first got back that I was kind of waiting for someone to come and shake things up for me.
Mhm.
And then I had some really amazing mentors and being like, you need to be clear on your narrative and you need to know what you're asking from like the world,
Yeah.
and no one's gonna do it for you. Like, it's just not gonna happen because we're all the center of our own universes.
Has anyone given you any tools on how to on that defining process?
Mm, um, yeah, I had a amazing mentor, like a few last year that really helped me out, and like one was very much like he came in being like, "I'm gonna only talk to you of like Rosie as like your employee value." Like, I'm gonna talk about this one color of you as my mentor. He's like, Everything that I'm saying is not if you wanna be a parent, if you wanna be friends." He's like,
Interesting.
he was just like, This is how I will help you within this." And he goes, "If you wanna, like, earn a lot of money and you wanna, like, accelerate your career really, really fast," he goes, "Australia's not it." He goes, "I'm just gonna tell you that right now. You're gonna go to the Middle East, you're gonna go to Singapore, you're gonna go to the US or wherever." But he's like, "Or back to Europe." And he goes, "But But he goes, "You have to make a decision if that's what you really want and just to drop everything else, know that Australia is not the place."
Wow.
And he goes, "But then the choice is yours of what is important to you because that's a completely different conversation." And again, it was just this little whack-a-mole in my head of like, yeah, I'm not gonna I can't be on a $5 million thing and want to have work-life balance. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless I create some app and, like, sponsor me,
Yeah.
but I think it was just a really good because he was, like, so blatantly, like, black and white with what he was helping me out in, and then I had another mentor who's, like, she's kind of just naturally become someone that I really, really respect, and she's a chief people officer and a mother and has balance and just, like, had this kind of more tender approach to it of like who she's like really invested in me as a whole person. And we had the conversation of like, everything is kind of like every lever that you pull, something else has to go, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, for me right now, like I've been away from my family for 15 years. So
Mm.
going away to somewhere in the Middle East now, I mean, I probably don't wanna be there right now because of like, even that, of being like,
Yeah.
am I willing to sit in a war zone to make a lot of money,
Yeah.
And it's like, and so I think that actually getting everything out on the table and looking at the cold, hard facts, because like, I think that there's definitely an opportunity to, earn a really good salary and be in Melbourne, but it's just gonna take a little bit longer
Yeah.
because I'm considering other things in my life. So I think actually calling a spade was a really good wake up call for me of being like, yeah, no one's gonna drop these opportunities in my head, but I have to know what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Just this like not brutal honesty, but yeah, accountability on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah,
Get a big A3 notepad.
totally. And just like connect all the
Yeah.
dots. Yeah.
Keep connecting
But
and connecting.
what do you think about this? Like, I think you can have it all, but just not at the same time.
Yeah. I like that for me is the thought that I like that brings me peace
Yeah,
because I'm
totally.
like, at the moment, I can't be the runner that I want to be,
Mm,
but I'm building a brand that I'm really excited about. But
totally.
I think in time when it like, when the engine is like built, then I'm like, I'll have some like couple more hours to like run or the like funds to like travel to a race that I really want
Mm,
to do.
yeah.
Whereas like I was even talking about it with my business partners, like certain style of running events. For instance, there was a 250-mile run on this week.
Mm,
If I was to do an event that extreme, the recovery time on that would be like 4 or 5 months. And that's
totally.
not even that's more the like mental side of like the brain fog, the decision making,
Totally.
the like repairing sleep. And it's like none of the three of us could take on something like that. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be fair to the others.
And not fair to, like, the other people in your world, right? Like, it
Yeah.
wouldn't be fair to Ari, it wouldn't be fair to your
Yeah.
friends. Like, for me, that's the other thing that I'm really I think has been a big moment is, like, I actually want to feel interconnected with other people. So,
Mm.
like, in sport, when I was rowing, like, I remember the first year when I stopped was, like, the first Christmas lunch that my training hadn't, like, shifted the Christmas lunch.
Yeah.
And actually being like, "Oh, I'm okay with that," or like, I had one of my family members had to go to hospital a few months ago or last year, and, like, I was on my way to a yoga class, and I was like, "Oh, I have to not go to this now because I need to go pick up someone from the hospital,"
Mhm.
and actually being like, it's actually, like, kind of nice to be considered, but I think, maybe it's a maturity thing as well, like, that's been probably the biggest thing that, like, even the fact that I have a dog, like, I can't just leave Pepper,
Yeah.
the Notes mascot, but, like, I can't leave her for 3 days because
Yeah.
she will die, you
Yeah.
know? So it's like, to actually have those but that's the accountabilities and the agency that I wanna have in my life now,
For
but that
sure.
that and I think it's, with people that coming into parenthood, like, you have to be reliant like, they're reliant on you for this, but kids grow up, and then you can kind of
Mm.
continue to reinvent yourself. So I think
Definitely.
that that's in terms of the change of like this isn't a set and forget thing. This is something you have to always be like a finger on the pulse
Yeah.
for.
I think that's a beautiful thought around change in honoring that you will reinvent yourself
Mm,
and not doubting that it can happen or will happen.
yeah, but you just have to be okay to let go of things, I think.
For sure.
And that's probably been the biggest thing. Like that's been the biggest confronting moment of like what are the thought that like internal stuff that I've had to let go, but then like the external stuff and some of times that's people.
Yeah.
Um and just like honoring what was, but being okay to like kind of go your separate ways and not trying to hold on too tightly. And I think that that's probably been like the biggest thing that's given me closure of like that doesn't make these people any less important to you anymore, but like maybe your time together is like it has to just be rejigged a little bit
Yeah.
and not trying to pretend that that's not a thing anymore, which is can be really, really difficult, I think.
It's tough.
Yeah,
But people are everything,
totally.
particularly when you're trying to become the person that you want to be.
Yeah.
One, I just want to like rewind a little bit on accountability. And then when you talk about your 22-year-old self,
Mm.
is there like a level of compassion for 22-year-old self? Because it's like you couldn't have had those tools to like
Yeah.
make the decisions and be really
Mm,
like take this crazy accountability in a way.
totally, and I think that that was, like that was a big thing of going, like, you kinda were doing the best with the information that you
Yeah.
had because I think I I was doing what I thought I should have been doing because I was trying to keep up with other people around me, and I wasn't I think the biggest thing was actually going, like, you know, the the thing about they don't talk about for to be in the middle of the podium and becoming an Olympic champion is like there's only one spot. So
Hmm.
so there has to be an actual willingness to do what other people aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that that was a big thing, like, I remember talking to my mum, like, years ago because I was a really big kid in terms of, like, physically when I was younger, and I used to do karate, and I would let, like, other girls beat me because I didn't wanna hurt them, like,
Yeah.
when we were sparring.
Yeah.
And she because I'm, like, by my nature is a little bit of a pussycat, like,
Yeah.
it's just, like, I'm just not a naturally competitive person, I don't think, and and then I think I I kind of felt bad to beat people initially, like, to actually let them step over me, and then I, you know, had this moment of like, you have to take away the kind of the friendships and moments of competition. You have to learn how to separate that. And then I used to have this like, well, why me? And then it's like,
Mm,
well, why not me? Like someone has to win and someone has to like be willing to do things. And so I kind of had to be okay to feel like I was doing things on my own and to kind of other myself because I just knew I had to like if you wanted to you have to go above and beyond to become an Olympic champion and I think that that's the girls in my crew in 2021 is that we had like kind of seen each other be on the perimeter of doing the like one percenters
mm,
better than anybody else. And there was a lot of collective trust that we built of like, want to be in that both with that person.
yeah.
And so when we were all together, we'd actually seen each other do the work. And then we had conversations of like, our crew itself, we could see that we were willing to do different things to the rest of like the other 20 people on our team.
Yeah.
And we had to be okay with that. And so we kind of ended up kind of sitting in a different position because we were just doing these different things, like the nuances and paying attention to things that other people weren't seeing as important. And so that's been like, I think the journey in terms of I have to be so proud of that 22-year-old girl because she just was like trying so hard, but she was just kind of revving her like
Yeah.
tires. And then I think it was kind of like we were talking before, like really simplified to what I was doing. But I found like-minded people that really energized me. And then I didn't feel so othered for like being okay to like kind of doing everything really properly. So yeah, I feel very proud of her. I just feel like I feel so sad that she was just felt so like trapped in feeling like she should do things rather than knowing
Yeah.
what like was right for her.
Mm.
Well done, little
Well
Rosie. Yeah.
done. Final question and
Yes.
segue on one percenters.
Good one.
What was your one percenter today?
My one percenter today. Um, I let myself have 8 hours of sleep.
Nice.
I identified that I had an event last night and I identified that I was feeling tired. And instead of pushing myself to do what I think I should do on a Friday morning, I rejigged my schedule and made sure that I looked after myself. And now
Incredible.
I feel amazing.
So good.
What about you?
My one percenter, probably both food related. Just drove back into Melbourne today.
Mm.
Stopped and had a smoothie with two of my friends. It was just an amazing smoothie,
Yum.
and I didn't. Last time I went there, it definitely wasn't that good. So I was really surprised by that.
The simple things.
And yeah, that's what comes to mind first.
It is sometimes just those little things that get through the day, isn't it? What flavor
Absolutely.
was it?
I got like a berry peanut butter
Oh,
protein. Yeah,
yum.
just
So
wonderful.
good.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening. As another episode of the Josh Lineup Project with our guest today, Rosie Popper.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
having
much for
me.
coming
That was
on.
so fun.
If you enjoyed it, please share it, however that is, whether that's a WhatsApp group chat, on the Instagram story, in a letter, on a postcard. Send it on. And as I said, if you'd like to support this podcast, you can buy either of us a coffee.
Long black.
Catch you next week. See ya.